Good morning. Oh, good Lord, come on now. You're English, you have a reputation to keep up. What I want to talk a little bit about today, the interesting thing was we started talking about sort of the changes that are going on in public relations and communications, and there's a lot. There seems to be, when Jonathan and I were talking about what I would talk about, we started talking about this idea of brand storytelling and what it really means and the changes that are going on in PR and what's happening. And so I'm a marketing guy, unapologetically. I'm a marketing guy. So first of all, thank you for allowing me in the building. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about how I think, I'm a marketing guy, so I'm due for hyperbole. And I'm going to talk about how content marketing, I can believe, can be your superhero and save you from some of this doom and gloom that we've been talking about. Jonathan was kind enough to introduce me. I've got a couple of books, blah, blah, blah. Then let's move on. Okay, so we are a long time into this. So I'm looking out into the audience, and I don't see a ton of gray hair, but we are 20 years into this web, digital, internet thing. 20 years. How's everybody doing? 20 years, 2 decades into this. I want to take us back in time because, to use the immortal words of Steve Jobs, we cannot look to the future without being able to connect the dots of the past. So I want to take us back in time for a minute. Way back, 1996 to be precise, and I want us to take a look at what people were talking about, what the advertisements were at this point for the internet, what we thought the internet was going to be. When we were thinking about the future in 1996, this is what a B2B company thought it would be.
The internet will be the biggest thing to hit business since the Industrial Revolution. The internet will be nothing more than a chat line for physicists and video game addicts.
Someday your web address will be more important than your phone number.
One day on the internet, a modern-day Attila the Hun will loot and pillage all in his path.
One day on the internet, the Colonel's secret recipe will whiz past the secret formula for Pepsi.
There are many visions of what the internet will become. The truth is, no one really knows what's going to happen. But as the computer company with the most internet experience, we've learned to engineer systems that anticipate this vast uncertainty so that you and your company can approach it as one huge opportunity. Digital, whatever it takes.
Yeah, whatever it takes. The only thing they got wrong, in fact, was the fact that they were going to be the company to help us navigate the vast uncertainty of the internet. They were in the throes of bankruptcy, Digital was. Does anybody remember Digital as a company? No? Okay, one person, right? So, thank you. This is the old guy in the room. Digital was in the throes of bankruptcy when they created this commercial. They were eventually sold to a little company called Compaq, which was, of course, then absorbed by the Death Star that we know as Hewlett-Packard today. And so, this was the future. This is what we looked at. I mean, they even got the Oculus Rift thing right, I thought was pretty interesting. This is what we thought the internet was going to be 20 years ago. 20 years ago. This is just to put that into perspective. Also in 1996, this is what you were dancing to. Yes, that is correct. You are welcome, by the way, for me not turning up the volume here. If you do not behave, I will absolutely play this song. This is what we were doing in 1996. So in other words, we are now to 1996 what basically we were doing in 1976. We were listening to these guys. This was the bands we were listening to. For all you young people in the world, this is the Sex Pistols. They were a great band that originated here. And that's what we were listening to. We were watching this. I had the hugest crush on Emma Peel. Come on now. This is the New Avengers. And of course, you guys were just getting used to this lady. She didn't even really, she had the beginnings of your attention in 1970. We're 20 years into this. 20 years. Where are your processes? How do you look at the web? How do we look at what's going on in digital? Because guess what? If you think the next 20 years or the next 5 years or the next 7 years are going to be interesting, it's all going to change again. Who knows this guy? You guys should all know this guy. Who? Bernays, of course. You can't go to a PR conference and not bring Edward Bernays to the party. Come on now. He has to be here. I want to bring him to the party for the sole reason because we think of PR in a little bit differently these days. And I want to sort of just remind us from where it came from. Edward Bernays is, there's some argument here about whether he's the father of PR or not, but in many opinion, he is. He was the cousin, by the way, of Sigmund Freud. And he believed he was a very interesting guy, very manipulative guy, and he absolutely believed that you could manipulate public opinion if you just tried hard enough. He was really of that opinion. The interesting thing was he came up with a lot of what we would think of as marketing campaigns back in the day. Marketing and PR were very, very intertwined in those days. What we think of as the Mad Men with Don Draper coming up with the idea of "It's Toasted" was really a PR campaign by the tobacco industry that was supported by their use of Amelia Earhart at the time, for an influencer, to talk about how cigarettes were truly healthy for you, He actually started something that really gave women's liberation a big movement. The Easter Parade in 1929 in New York, he actually basically manifested all these women to come down and start smoking cigarettes in public, which was illegal at the time, to have women smoke in public. And he had all these women smoke and walk in the Easter Parade smoking cigarettes, and it really changed the idea of women smoking in public and really gave birth to a lot of the women's issues. He also, in something I'm very thankful for, quite frankly, worked with the bacon industry and gave birth to what's now known as the All-American Breakfast. Yeah, come on now. Talked about eggs and bacon becoming, and he worked with doctors to get those doctors to start to talk about how bacon was really good for you, because eating oatmeal for breakfast, that's crazy. You need a good, solid breakfast every day. The All-American Breakfast. When you can influence leaders either with or without their cooperation, you can manipulate and influence the group in which they sway. That is where we come from. All of that is to say, guess what? Neither of us, PR, marketing, we are not in the business of truth. We are not in the business of truth. Every single one of you who has written at the bottom of a press release that we are the only synergistic something solution in the world that does that. No, you're lying through your teeth. We are not in the business of truth. We are, in the immortal words of Blanche Dubois, what ought to be the truth. Here are some things that I know. I know for a fact that Siri is not going to bring me soup. I know that. I know that for a fact. I know for a fact that when we look at that commercial from Coca-Cola, that the actors that are up on the hill singing "Free to Be" and all of that, those are all actors. They rehearsed that like 7 times before they actually got the shot. I know that. That's a fact. Intellectually, I know it. I know for a fact that the Hilton DoubleTree is not really sorry to hear about my trouble. If it's not a robot that's answering me when I tweet them like, "I'm mad at you, you've ruined my reservation," they're not really sorry. They're just trying to get me off their screen as fast as they possibly can. And I know for a fact that there's only 11 minutes in a 3-hour football game. I don't care. I know this intellectually. I know it. I also know that all of these things are true. But I don't care because I want them to be true. I believe them. There's a story I believe. As Blanche Dubois, through the immortal words of Tennessee Williams, said, "I want magic." Yes, magic. That is what we deliver. We don't deliver the truth, we deliver what ought to be the truth. And we need to be okay with that. That's all right. That is all right. As long as we're real, as long as we deliver reality and excitement and value to the audiences that we serve. That is the core. If we can deliver value, that is where we will succeed. So how do we do that? Because you hear this all the time. You hear, we need to become media companies, we need to become publishing companies, we need to become just like a publisher and just like a media. And you see the pushback these days. You'll see pushback from people saying, media companies don't talk about themselves. Well, yeah, they do. Absolutely. I worked for a television network for many years. They have B2B problems, B2B marketing problems. They have sales guys who don't get it. They screw up the PowerPoint presentations. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. They have marketing people who don't get it. They have PR people who don't get it. They have all sorts of people who don't get it. We just don't see it. They talk about themselves constantly. We're not in their target market. The difference And the reason that we need to think about this in a different way is the way that media companies think about content. They think about it in a different way, as a different kind of asset, as a different kind of value. And so if we start thinking, how do we delight audiences? How do we delight our constituents? Whether they're influencers, press, customers, etc., how do we delight them? We need to start thinking about content in a different way. I'm going to play you something now that at the beginning, you'll see at the beginning of different kinds of content that and I want you to think about what is on the other side of it. What's next, Jonathan? What comes next?
I don't know until I look at this.
It's going to be awesome, though, right? Yeah, whatever it is, you don't know, but it's going to be friggin' awesome. Every time I was rehearsing this, by the way, I was putting this presentation together. Every time I would play that slide, my wife, what? What are we doing? What's going on? This is the kind. So how, when your customers get your email, are they going, oh my God, I don't know what it is, but it's going to be great? When you open it, when you see the cover of that white paper from Jonathan, are you going, I don't know what it is, it is going to be awesome? This is the kind of delight we have to be able to create. This is the kind of anticipation that we have to, this is the kind of magic, what ought to be the truth. Is it impossible? Is it impossible for us to be able to deliver that as businesses, as insurance companies, as technology hardware companies? I would say no, absolutely not impossible. It absolutely is possible to deliver that level of delight. It is not out of reach. Think about a company called Lego. They made a movie that didn't win an Academy Award, sadly. It should have totally won the Academy Award. It's called the Lego Movie. Put your product name in front of movie. Does it work? They made it work. What I love about what Lego did here is that they didn't spill out their toys on top of a table and say, Hollywood, figure out how to make a movie out of this. No. What they did was they went to Hollywood and they said, make the movie you want to make. Make the content you want to make. We'll make the toys to match. That's what's changed. We can flip. We can start to create media and make the product to match. Make the experience to match. How about this? How about Kraft, a food company, mostly in North America? They make everything, cheese and all that kind of stuff. They have Food and Family Magazine. Food and Family Magazine and their online website, which is the online database. Their Food and Family Magazine and their online database has 3 million opt-in subscribers who pay money for the magazine. They subscribe to the magazine. They subscribe to the marketing material. And for the online database, they subscribe in the course of very, very detailed data. 3 million opt-in subscribers. They have a bigger audience than does Food TV Network. It would actually make more sense for Food TV Network to advertise with Kraft than it does the other way around. Or how about a B2B example? HubSpot. You guys have heard of HubSpot. Brian Halligan and Dharmesh Shah, when they started HubSpot in Boston, there was no such thing as inbound marketing before those guys got started. No, but it didn't even exist. They created an entire category of marketing. 3 guys in a basement in MIT. They wrote a book. They started creating content. They started creating events. They started speaking. They started working PR and created an entire category of marketing that they would ultimately become associated with as being the thought leader. They created themselves as a thought leader in a category that didn't exist. And so where does PR fit into all of this? Well, wonderfully. So PR is hugely influential in making sure that the content of the Lego Movie is successful, working through all of the different influencer relations, as well as with Kraft. Huge PR effort here to work as Food and Family just started to get its legs underneath it. They went out to all of these mommy bloggers and started to get influencers, the mommy bloggers, to start talking about all of the wonderful recipes that you could, we would call it native advertising today, but this was 6 or 7 years ago, where they started getting influencers to blog about this. Or HubSpot, where they created products. In this case, their website Grader, which got its own PR budget, got its own ability to go out there and start to work with the influencers to get them using website Grader, which of course got everybody using website Grader, which of course produced leads for them. PR and marketing have been intertwined in this in making this work, have been making content work for these companies. And if we think this is really happening now, what are the next 5 years going to bring us here? What's your 2020 marketing plan? We're a lot closer to 2020 than you may even think. We're closer to 2020 than we are from certainly the introduction of the iPad. How's everybody's site doing? All responsive design. You guys got your mobile strategy all figured out. It's all going good, right? Right? Tablet strategies are all figured out because you're closer than the Samsung. You're certainly closer to 2020 than you are from Facebook unless you went to Harvard. Yeah, you're closer to 2020 than you actually are from Instagram. Or you're closer to 2020 actually than from Pinterest. These have all been out there. We're well into this. Or we're closer to 2020 almost than from Google+. Everybody got Google+ strategy sorted out? Everybody killing their Google? You can kill your Google+ strategy, by the way. Google is gone, is dead, is out. Google+ is dead. Things are changing so fast that things are dying before we even get a chance to get a strategy on them. This is the world that we now live in. And this is the thing, it's not going to slow down. In the next 5 years, 3 billion more people are going to come online. 3 billion. And the largest growth areas, by the way, Sub-Saharan Africa and South America, then India, then China, in that order. The next Uber, the next Airbnb, the next Facebook, the next Snapchat, the next Meerkat, the next Periscope is probably going to come out of one of those two areas. So yes, new opportunities, new markets, but also new entrepreneurial class that's going to come and compete with all of the things that we are doing in our business. We have to evolve. We need to evolve our processes and our marketing so that we are actually doing things and marketing in the year that we're in. Consumers have adapted, and in many cases, we haven't. We are still operating in PR motives and marketing motives of 10 years ago, 20 years ago, in some cases, 1976, where we're still operating. We haven't adapted yet. And here's the thing, we shouldn't wait for the train wreck because it's coming. And what I mean by that is in the 1800s, trains were actually, the railroads were the biggest business on the planet. They were growing at the rate of what dot-coms were in the early part of the last decade. And what the inevitable happened, as this growth was going so fast, an eastbound train and a westbound train inevitably hit one another head on. And up until that time, the interesting thing was that the global companies, big companies, were very flat, very non-hierarchical in the way that they operated, very innovative. And regional managers were allowed to really run their own businesses. This changed with this train wreck. Because what the railroads did is that this can't happen again. We will bring in what we will call human resources. Human resources will be managed and measured by their ability to manage the resource in which they are in charge. And this is what we got out of it. This is a template that exists on every single one of your laptops, and you hate looking at it. But we all live by this. And I'm old enough to remember when marketing, we used to be one box on that. And now what we've done with marketing and PR is we've siphoned it all off and we've created multiple boxes. Over the last 15 years, now we have a social team. We have a social CRM team. We have a PR team. We have a communications team. We have an e-business team. We have the web team. We have the e-business team. We have a vice president of marketing and a vice president of digital marketing. I don't get that. If vice president of regular marketing and vice president of digital marketing, this is where we are today. We all create this content for our own nefarious purposes, and we have further stratified the buyer's journey to the point where we manage our own little piece of the pie. Philip Kotler, one of my heroes, marketing heroes, Professor Kotler, said this 16 years ago when he wrote a book. The last chapter of that book was the e-transformation of marketing. And he talked about the coming 15 years, where he said, in the coming years, marketing will be transformed fundamentally. We will have to fundamentally transform the way we create value for users. And it's a great quote, and it didn't happen. We have not fundamentally transformed anything. Marketing, PR, we're still doing the same old things. We give lots of lip service. I talked to one VP at a very, very large PR agency, and they said, you know what happens? Here's what happens. We all gather in the great room, and the owners of the agency will come out and they'll go, we're going to go big in social. We're going to be big in content marketing. We're going to start creating stories and brand storytelling for our clients. And it's going to be really awesome. And we're going to change this agency. And everybody goes, yes, grabs a slice of pizza, goes back to their cube and starts trying to get coverage for their clients. And no change ever happens. This is the world that we live in. And so what has changed? What has changed for marketing and PR? Three fundamental things that I'll contend, and contend more in the book. One is the evolution of the customer relationship. Two is the democratization of content and experiences. And three, content's evolution in the business. Let me just touch on each of these. First of all, the relationships have changed. So everything that we know has been disrupted. It doesn't matter what company you work for, the industry in, very, very good chance that it's been disrupted by digital. Whether you're PR, journalism, publishing, healthcare, finance, hardware, software, record company, it doesn't matter. Your business has been disrupted in some way. The relationship that digital has brought has changed the relationship with customers. It used to be when we were really mad at a brand, we would type. Actually, yes, kids, there was actually a physical typewriter. We actually had to type things. And we'd type it on a piece of paper, and we'd pull it out of the typewriter, we'd fold it up, we would stick it into the postal box, and we would wait. 6 to 8 weeks we would wait. And then 6 to 8 weeks later, we would get a note back from the company saying, so sorry, Mr. Rose, that you had trouble, and here 6 to 8 weeks from now, you can expect a refund for your trouble. 16 weeks we would wait. Studies have shown now that we expect remediation for our trouble in 15 minutes. Oh, the soup was cold. I'm going to write a Yelp review. Oh, the stewardess, the flight attendant, she was mean to me. I'm going to tweet about it. Blah. I'm in a business to business. I don't care if you're not on Twitter. I'm still going to tweet about how much I hate your company. The purchase order didn't go through. Doesn't matter. Your customers expect you to be wherever they are. You've heard the story about the professor here who got in trouble for saying something bad about, as he said, something sexist about. We're all public figures these days. Everybody's in a public. It is only a matter of time before somebody in your company puts their foot in their mouth and does something. You all know it. And so how that is changing the relationship with our customers, everybody is now the press. And so we have to be able to deal with that. We have to be able to take responsibility strategically for managing that relationship and delighting those customers at every single step. Next is the democratization of content and experiences. And what I mean by that is you may have heard of this thing called content shock, or there's so much content now we can't consume it all. It's so noisy. It's hard to omni-channel everything that's out there. Yes, it's true. But of course, that's been true since the printing press arrived. There's been more content than you can humanly consume. The problem now is that it is both the power and the risk. We have the opportunity to aggregate our own audiences and owned media platforms. We can do this. The power exists now that we do not have to rent audiences anymore from the publishers that we use. And in many ways, those publishers can be competitive with us. But it's the risk of not doing it well. It does not mean that we should give up on content. It means that we've got to get good at it. And I contend, and I'm a huge fan of PR, I contend that PR is probably the most appropriate to be the ones to create this value, to be able to create the differentiated value at the storytelling level. Why? Because you're the ones that are most used to doing it. Marketers, quite frankly, are so entrenched in creating features and benefits and unique sales propositions and unique value propositions and headlines and putting adjectives in front of nouns all day long. We are really struggling with this. PR at least understands how to tell a story. Now, whether you have the permission or the evolution to be able to do that is a different story, but I believe that you're the ones that have the opportunity to do it. We must not only create value or describe value, we must also create. This is the new muscle for most organizations. This is the third one, which is marketing's evolution, PR's evolution in the business, the communications evolution in the business. It is up to us now. The experiences that we create at every single stage along that consumer's journey, from the time that they meet us, to the time that we develop trust with them, to the time that they actually become loyal. When they become a customer, it's just a transaction. When they are upsold, cross-sold, and ultimately evangelistic in sharing their story with our brand on all the channels that we will never have the capacity to be on, that is when we have something that truly scales. That is when we have something that is truly evolved. And I believe that PR has the ability to drive that opportunity. What does it mean? It means that content is what we are. Our content now is what we are. Our product, our service is easily duplicable these days. If it's not easily duplicable in some other country, it is easily duplicable in a competitor. It's a click away. But content, the experience that we can create through content, is what we are. It is the way that we differentiate. And the new muscle, by the way, is how we delight customers to evolve them through that process. Creating a customer, creating somebody at that conversion point, that's table stakes. Now it is not only important that we grab the attention just enough so that they buy something, it is incumbent upon us to hold it to be able to do that. So, we have to be able to do that. And in the immortal words of Deming, if we can't describe what we're doing as a process, we have no idea what we're doing. When we do a study every year, we find out that basically, really, everybody's doing content, but only 3 in 10 people really feel any good about it. Everybody feels like they're doing content marketing. Every year that we've done the study, and we studied this year the biggest sample ever. We had 2,500 people that we asked. 9 out of 10 of them said that they were doing it. But only 3 in 10 feel like they're getting any results at all out of it. And part of that is, of course, the cultural barriers that culture is still eating strategy for breakfast. Lunch may be coming, though, because we're starting to see the pendulum swing a little bit. We're starting to see that the idea of content is something that differentiates the business, that moves the business forward, is actually a good idea. People feel like it's a good idea. They understand instinctually that it's a good idea, but they just don't understand how to actually make it work. The silos, they definitely suck. Everybody has this problem. The way that we have stratified marketing, the way we have stratified communications has been a huge issue. They suck. But content can de-silo the organization. We've seen it. I've seen it happen. Where if we start to think about content as the process, not the channels that it lives on, we can start to understand how to de-silo the organization and create a functional strategy. So is it brand storytelling? Is that really the answer? Is that really what we're looking for here? Well, let's just look at a couple of people that are working on this. So, interestingly enough, we'll deal with the 2 elephants first. So Red Bull, Schmedbull, blah, you can't go to a content market. Everybody's Red Bull. Enough about Red Bull already. All right, but what I like about Red Bull, here's what I like about Red Bull. All what you see there are content brands. Those aren't product brands. Those are content brands that they create. They've got a television network. They've got a magazine that you pay for here. They've got television shows. They've got a full-length feature movie. They've got documentaries. They've got events. Those are all content brands. Fascinating, I didn't say this, but it's been said about Red Bull that they're basically a media company that also happens to sell a soft drink. And if the soft drink business goes bad for them tomorrow, they could sell anything. They could sell surfboards. They could sell a fashion line. They could sell anything they want, sporting goods. They could sell really anything that aligns with that bond and the audience that they've been given. They've got that. Coca-Cola is a well-trod path. Their Coca-Cola Content 2020 project, Jonathan Mildenhall, who created that. If you have not seen it, just go Google 2020 Project Coca-Cola on YouTube and watch the 2 24-minute videos. It's a wonderful, wonderful. They're doubling the size of their business by using what they call liquid content. Very interesting strategy. But also Qualcomm, B2B. Qualcomm created an entire portal called Spark for futurists. This is largely driven out of their PR department, by the way, where they look at this and they say, in today's world, Leah Sharif, who's the publisher there, it's her title, is consumers are skeptical of brand messaging, and Spark is meant to cut through the noise and provide unique experiences on how mobile is transforming the world. And that's really an interesting one. GE is creating a documentary series. They've actually gone out and hired A-list talent. Ron Howard and Brian Grazer as producers, and gotten directors, Angela Bassett, Peter Berg, Paul Giamatti, Akiva Goldsman, Ron Howard. They're all directing episodes of this new television series and a documentary for GE. They're creating an entire documentary series. Goldman Sachs, through, again, their PR department, they're producing mini documentaries on all the companies that they have investments in. So they go out on their major holdings as an investment company, look at those companies, and produce little mini histories of those companies, documentaries, put them on their website. That becomes an experience that customers and people who are looking to put their money with Goldman Sachs can look at, profiling the companies that they're investing in. Also, how do we get there? How do we actually start to evolve this from where we are today to where we need to be? Well, I'll take it very, very quickly here. 3 things to sort of leave you with. One is function before form. To think about how we actually make a business case for something where we're going to evolve into something more than what we are today. We were talking before the event started about this idea that, yeah, content marketing is fine. Content marketing is one piece of an evolution that PR needs to go through. If all you get out of these days, as well as the content marketing approach, is that you should be doing more content marketing, then it's lost. The idea is that PR needs to change into something different, something new, something evolved, something that doesn't quite exist, something that is more strategic. But the way to do that is to stop thinking about form first and then function. It is the function, the process of content and its operation and strategic value to the business that's important. Not the form that it takes, not the channels. Those will always be ephemeral. 2 is story before medium. We are classically taught as marketers, less so in PR, that it is medium first and then story. And that needs to change. And 3rd is purpose before type. Let me give you each of these in order here. So function before form. What I mean by that is that facts don't change beliefs. We can have as much statistics, we can have as much data, we can go to content marketing world, we can go to future comms, we can hear all sorts of wonderful data, bring it back to our boss, and the boss goes, yeah, that's not how we do business here. I've seen that happen too many times where basically the business case is made for a project. We make a business case that says we're going to basically try and make a business case for a blog or for a print magazine or for a microsite or for something else. And instead we need to start thinking about how do we make a business case for the function of content. In other words, how do I go to marketing, or how do I go to demand generation, or how do I go to the brand team? How do I start to integrate together to create something that is more and bigger than what we have in a single silo? And maybe it's just something as simple as sharing editorial calendars or sharing content strategy or sharing assets to start with. Build it one house, one street, one neighborhood, one city at a time. But the function needs to be born first, and then actually going and making the business case for that function to exist. And the function is actually content. Story before medium. Joe Polizzi, who occasionally says smart things, there's your tweetable moment, will say something about the content mission. And this is understanding that what we're doing is bigger and more valuable to the customer than the way that we go to market with persuasive copy and headlines and features and benefits. What he says is the content mission is now about not about what you sell, it is rather what you stand for. This will be the basis of your content plan. This is the basis of your content plan. It is your mission. It is based on the needs of your customers. Who can satisfy that goal? The person, the persona, if we start to think about it like that. 3, what valuable experience, separate from our products or our services, can satisfy and deliver that value? And lastly, what makes our ability to deliver this value different than our competition? And what I mean by that is that in many ways, when we start to develop content as a function, as a differentiating function in our business, we will be in competition with some of the people that we would have normally thought we wouldn't be. Publishers, for example, or other competitors that are addressing the same audience. For example, Intuit and American Express, they're not really competitors, but because they both address small businesses from a content perspective, the Small Business Forum and the way that Intuit does their blogging are in many ways competitive for that consumer's attention and the value that they're delivering. So what makes our approach to delivering this content different? Here's an example. We deliver digital marketing insight for CMOs and senior marketing executives. We offer marketing news and insights on diverse topics, online media branding, online marketing, and more. As a global leader in digital marketing, we also offer exclusive digital marketing news and commentary, et cetera, et cetera. That's CMO.com from Adobe. Nothing there about CQ5, nothing there about test and target, nothing there about their analytics system. It's all about what value and why they're different at it. Now, is it the best mission in the world? I don't know. But it's real. I copied and pasted that right from the web. It is how they deliver value as a product, as a media product, as an asset that builds value over time. That is the way that they go about it. And the last is purpose before type. So managing the product of content, and that's the real key here. It is a different methodology. We get out of this campaign mindset. We get out of the mindset of always... Now, campaigns are important. As Jonathan said, campaigns are absolutely important. They produce value in time. Content marketing is different. It's a different investment model. It produces value over time. It is the way that we invest in content to build value over the scope of time. When we start here in this management process, we can be behind. But here's the thing. If we can start to map content to the experiences that we want to create, map these assets that we're creating to something bigger as a product, as building value, investing in them like we would a product, then we start to build into it an asset where we're operating like a media company, where we're treating content as an asset that we're investing in over time. Whether that's a magazine, a blog, a white paper program, a webinar program, or all of the above, they start to act like assets that develop and earn a return on investment. That's the real difference. Understand the investment model that we're creating here. It's a different investment model. It's not just creating assets for a campaign. I've seen so many businesses fall into the trap, and this is where I don't want you to fall into the trap as PR. As you're evolving this process, don't fall into the trap of just saying, hey, we're now in content marketing, so what we do is we produce campaign assets that are kind of thought leadership things that serve a campaign. That will ultimately lead you down just another transactional path. Rather, if we can start to think more strategically about how content can operate as a strategic function of the business and create something that is a media property or a product that creates basically value over time. It is just a different investment model. And I guarantee you, here's the thing, I guarantee you, if you focus on that, the assets that you create for creating that value over time will support any direct marketing campaign that the CMO wants. Any great thought leadership asset that's building towards something bigger will support a direct marketing result or a campaign. And that's the real key. Content ultimately has, I believe, fundamentally believe, the value to convert and evolve PR into something new. But it is merely an engine into what PR must evolve into, which is something different than it is today. The practice must change fundamentally into something more strategic that reclaims its ability, as I've seen, to be the corporate storyteller. It takes the value of data to a new level. The value of data to a new level. We often hear this idea of data-driven, of being a data-driven company and data and big data and all of this kind of stuff. If you start thinking about content as an asset, it starts to develop data on audiences, which means that you're not only getting data on the people who buy from you, but you're getting data on the people who don't buy from you and who ultimately may buy from you. Julie Fleischer at Kraft is a great example of this. The 3 million opt-in subscribers that she has, are all those people buying Kraft products? No, maybe only a very small percentage. But they have data now on their audience better than any research company on the planet. In fact, they've turned off all the external research that they need to buy for their brand managers. When brand managers need to know what moms in Georgia or women or families in northeastern Ohio need to think, they don't buy research from external third parties anymore. They have better research than anybody on the planet. In fact, they could sell that research if they wanted to. They also then use that data to do programmatic ad buys, digitally, television, print, etc. It gives them insight. That is value. That is an asset, an audience and a content asset that provides value in different ways than just driving leads into a funnel. Finally, it makes everything we do stronger. A great content asset driven by PR makes marketing better. It makes advertising better. It makes all of the things that we're doing better. It is not separate. It is infused into all of those things. And if you can start building strategic value like that and evolving the practice to develop and deliver that value, whether it's data, whether it's sales, whether it's customer loyalty, at whatever part of the funnel you're starting to drive it for, then you become the strategic engine. The strategic. It becomes your marketing superhero. The key with all these, all the success stories that you hear at every conference, the key to all of them, Eduardo Conrado, what he will tell you and what he told us when we wrote the book, the key to all of this was they actually changed. They didn't just talk about it. They actually did change. And that's the real key. As Jack Welch would say, when the rate of change on the outside, and we all know things are changing fast, when the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of change on the inside, that's when we know the end is near. So if there's any sense of urgency, that is it. With that, I would like to thank you very much for your attention. I'm here all the rest of the day. I thank you so much. This is the book. There's 3 free chapters of the book right there. No registration or anything like that needed to download it if you're interested in more about the experiences and the methodology of content creation management, which I went through very briefly there. Thank you very, very much.